Hello, everyone, and welcome back into the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. Before we get into our second segment of the day here on today's show, I do want to remind you that if you do feel so inclined, please consider leaving a tip or donation through the $ on your screen if you click it there. But also keep on making yourselves available to all the features that you guys offer, including the Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features. Great way to interact with the show. I love hearing your guys' opinions. Let me know what you think about the show. Any burning questions, comments, or concerns are always greatly appreciated so we can make our shows that much better. But without further ado, let's jump into our second segment of the day, following in the lines of that Thursday night betting preview. Going to give you some more general prop bets because while it's a very weird game in terms of a betting perspective, there are a lot of interesting players in it that I feel like have unique opportunities to win you some valuable money. Because at the end of the day, in any other situation, I would say this game is not looking like a fun one to bet on because we both know these are rookie QBs we're talking about here, and we don't know how their weapons are going to perform for them. But it just makes it that much more exciting to take risks as well. So I feel like this segment is going to be much better to you than, say, a general betting preview. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Let's start off with the Broncos QB, Bo Nox. Now, I feel like there could be many different directions with how I viewed him from a betting perspective in this game, but I think the safest, most risky bet, kind of fun to think about, is going over in yards, 185.5 yards, minus 114. But he's kind of like the reckless QB who you always want to take a risk on because he has high highs and low lows. So I kind of feel like he's going to have one of those games where his recklessness down the field is going to be enough to hit his yardage total, but also he's going to have moments where he actually makes the safer reads. You know what I mean? And he's going to allow his receivers to perform after the catch, and he's going to incorporate so many more weapons. There will be those moments, but just because of how he has performed so far under Sean Payton and perhaps how Sean Payton wants to perform, we're going to see a lot more of Bo Nox trying to get the ball down the field in a hurry rather than, some more drives where he looks like a competent NFL quarterback. But it plays into this prop a lot because you're going to see a lot of things potentially go right for him in the downfield passing game if he continues with this narrative. So look for him to be a fun player to kind of hedge your bets on for tomorrow night's game. But on the other side of things, I found an even weirder bet for his opponent at the QB position for the Saints in Spencer Rattler. Because we know from him in college that he was someone who, was kind of a dual threat guy, but mainly ran to throw, rather. And I feel like in tomorrow night's game, we're going to see a lot more of the latter. So I'm going to take the under in terms of his rushing yards. This is a weird one because I wouldn't expect Spencer Rattler, especially in this situation, to run the ball anyways, and you wouldn't expect it probably either. But I feel like it is something in his game that might be a fallback option should the Saints not settle in comfortably in this game. But I am going to take the under anyways at minus 110 because I feel like the way the Saints will approach this game, they're going to want to make Spencer Rattler comfortable. And where Spencer Rattler is more comfortable is picking you apart in the short to intermediate areas of the field. That's where he's at his best, showing off his accuracy to different levels, and most importantly, leaning into that protection that his offensive line can give him. Not for nothing, the Saints' offensive line has had its ups and downs this season. But, if they can find a happy medium, look for Spencer Rattler to settle comfortably into the pocket and not look to utilize his legs as much. So two very weird bets for these two rookie quarterbacks. Now let's switch over to the skill position players because they kind of feel like they'll be left by the wayside because everyone's attention will be on these two guys in this game. Let's look at Alvin Kamara in this game. Let's talk a little bit about him because he is someone, right, who had a great start to the season, but in recent weeks kind of fell by the wayside or lost its luster a little bit in this offense. For no particular reason, I think, either. It's just because I feel like the Saints were panicking that their offensive game plan didn't work for longer, and so they abandoned it. And so that's why I feel like we haven't seen that much of Alvin Kamara the past weeks. However, in this game, I certainly feel like, if the Saints are looking to settle down Spencer Rattler, a big part of it will also be through either the run game or the screen game with him. He's always a nice little outlet for any quarterback. He always makes himself available in desperate situations for the offense, and that's the reason why he's still such an X factor for the Saints, no matter who's playing the quarterback position going forward for them. And he's going to have over 73.5 rush yards in this game, minus 115. He's going to supply the rush yards, while I feel like Spencer Rattler's going to settle in comfortably as a passer. That's how I feel like going forward you can get the best out of both of these players, learn more about Rattler, but also utilize perhaps your best weapon on the offensive side of the football in Kamara if you're the Saints. So look for Alvin Kamara to really be the difference maker for the Saints offense, or the guy who can alter this game in the Saints' favor, should Spencer Rattler not feel comfortable, because he can settle everything down in an instant for this offense. But then we go over to the other running back who Andre mentioned in my previous segment in terms of his fantasy team. And Javonte Williams, not for nothing, I still think he'll have a big game. But I actually think he's going to hit the under in rushing yards. I feel like a lot of the Broncos' offense is going to be very push-pull. There are going to be moments where they're going to want to maybe lean a little bit more into the running game to play a little bit more ball control offense, but there will be moments where you're going to get the erratic, unpredictable Bo Nox in this game, because it's not going to be a pretty kind of operation for the Broncos moving forward. But I think Javonte Williams, what he will do great in is that Andre said Javonte should have a great game. I'm not saying he's going to have a bad game because I'm saying he's hitting the under. I feel like he's going to influence this game very positively for Bo Nox if Bo Nox needs him, if you know what I mean. Because he is a nice little security blanket in the receiving game. People don't understand how good of a receiving back Javonte Williams is, because of the fact that he hasn't really had an opportunity in a competent offense to prove it. So I think that for all perhaps his deficiencies in the running game, I think he's going to have a huge game in the receiving game. And I feel like it will settle Bo Nox down on the drives where he is looking to make it simple for himself, and maybe Sean Payton making it simpler for him as well. But at the end of the day, you're going to get the most usage and production out of Javonte Williams, not just as a running back, but as a receiving back as well. Because what I've seen in this Broncos running back room is a lot of questions about its ability in the open field after contact. And if you simplify both the run game and the screen game to kind of calm Bo Nox down, it will just make this offense look a lot smoother going forward. So look for Javonte Williams to be a very versatile player, but perhaps not in the ways you expect. Speaking to Andre's point, he will have a good game. I honestly believe so. But it's not going to be in a predictable way, because that's not the way the 2024 Denver Broncos operate. I feel like Javonte Williams' best production will come from the receiving game, actually. Minus 110. Take the under in rushing yards. And then the last player that I want to go over before we take a quick break is Courtland Sutton. Perhaps the best receiver in this Denver Broncos squad, but we really don't know, because there have been so many inconsistencies in the past game. There have been some very, like I said, high highs, but very low lows. And not for nothing, I feel like the Denver Broncos receiving room, even in the Russell Wilson era, never really found its footing outside of a guy like Courtland Sutton. So going forward, maybe that's the problem that will best help us determine whether or not the Denver Broncos are a playoff team. If anyone outside of Courtland Sutton can step up in that receiver room. Because I could even really name any Broncos receivers. Marvin Mims maybe, if he's still there. But I'm not sure that anyone can rise up to the challenge of being another weapon for Bo Nox. I mean, that's something that the Denver Broncos can fix and adjust moving forward. But in this game, look for Courtland Sutton to still have a very big game at over 44.5 receiving yards at minus 110. Because, not for nothing, I feel like he's going to be the receiver, whether it's big play or intermediate play, that I feel like Bo Nox is going to develop the rapport with, not just this season, but for the next couple seasons, for as long as Bo Nox is their starting quarterback. And so, yes, I would love to see someone else step up, but the fact of the matter is, settling down a rookie quarterback definitely involves finding him a consistent weapon. And I feel like Bo Nox is starting to trust Courtland Sutton a lot in the system. Maybe there will come a time when I just now remembered Troy Franklin, his former college teammate at Oregon, steps into that role. But for now, I feel like Courtland Sutton is the weapon that the Broncos can really look into as someone who can settle down Bo Nox. And we saw it a little bit in their last game against the Chargers. That's why I mentioned them prematurely. But I feel like going forward, he seems like the simplest player to bet on in this Broncos offense, whether in fantasy or if you're betting in real life. But let me know what you think in the comments about this game, because it's very weird. But coming up next, we're switching gears a little bit, concluding my rankings, my positional rankings for this week in fantasy football with my tight ends, and then we get into our defense and special teams. But first, the tight ends right after this short break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports